I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly Memorial Day Special. A World War II veteran tells us why it is so important to honor those troops who never made it home. In their own words, 2 Vietnam veterans shared their experience and why they tried to make sure other veterans receive the recognition they deserve. Catholic War Veterans. The group's national commander suggests meaningful ways to honor Memorial Day. And ultimate sacrifice. Join us on a trip to Arlington National Cemetery, where we learn about the history of the holiday. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us for this EWTN News Nightly Memorial Day special. We begin tonight with a World War II veteran who knows all too well the importance of the holiday. 97-year-old Stanley Maybrook was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. He says that he was shot while fighting in the hedgerows but survived. He told us about the significance of Memorial Day.
Well, it's important to memorize all the veterans, all the good things they did, and all the tough times they had. It's hard to express an opinion how much it's appreciation of what they did, the sacrifice everybody made. People just looking from the outside. It's too bad that everybody can't see it from the inside. It's not to be glorified. It's something remembered and not forgotten.
Oh, we caught up with Mr. Maybrook outside of the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. He traveled with Honor Flight Columbus, which also paid tribute to veterans from other wars. Richard Rush and Oscar McClung, 2 Vietnam veterans, now belong to a motorcycle ministry. Listen as they describe the importance of Memorial Day in their own words.
It's very heartfelt, actually. The military is not being supported the way it should be. Ukraine's not being supported the way it should be. It's just, I'm sorry.
It's a cliche, but freedom is not free. It has to be earned and has to be protected. That's the main thing more than anything else. People don't realize nowadays. I know my children and grandchildren have no idea.
Yeah.
I hope they never have to learn. I hope they never have to go to war.
Yeah.
I know when I came home from Vietnam, we were treated like dirt.
Yeah.
And we made up our mind, Rick and I, that we wouldn't see anybody else treated the way we were treated. Mm-hmm. So Afghanistan, Desert Storm, those type of things, we went out of our way to make sure that they were honored and that, they got recognition for what took place.
What they've done.
And that's the same way with Memorial Day. That's what it's for more than anything else.
But we're always praying for everyone. It doesn't matter race, color, creed, whatever. And it's just something that everybody should be doing right now, is praying for them.
But if you know a veteran or anybody, they don't have to be a veteran of a foreign war or whatever, just a veteran in general. Because they took an oath when they went in the military to defend this country. And that oath is still in effect. It was never revoked or taken back. So, honor the people that served this country.
The Catholic War Veterans of the USA also seeks to honor fallen military members. The group's national commander, David Crum, told us that it's important to take time to honor those individuals that have served and have given the ultimate sacrifice.
Literally millions of American citizens have fought for this country. And this is one day a year that we memorialize those individuals, both male and female, some of them giving the ultimate sacrifice to defend and build this country. Whether you host a parade or you go to the grave sites, place flags on the tombstones of those individuals, there are multiple ways in which you can celebrate this day.
The Catholic War Veterans of the USA was organized back in 1935 and later included the first Catholic president, John F. Kennedy, as a member. We're also told that they are the only Catholic organization to have a congressional charter. Well, a historian says every day is Memorial Day at Arlington National Cemetery. It holds up to 30 burials a day and plans to continue for decades to come. We talked to the cemetery's historian, who happens to be Catholic. Tim Frank explained how Memorial Day got its start under a different name.
The first Decoration Day in 1868, thousands of people showed up to Arlington to decorate the graves with flowers. And every year we started seeing thousands more come to Arlington on Decoration Day. So much so that Arlington became the premier national cemetery. We actually have veterans from the American Revolution who are brought here from other cemeteries after we became a cemetery. We have soldiers and sailors, unknown soldiers and sailors from the War of 1812. We have unknown soldiers from the Civil War. So we really have service members from every single conflict in our history. And no doubt we'll have future conflicts where service members will continue to be buried here at Arlington. And you look around you, you're surrounded by thousands of headstones, and each headstone represents someone's story. The Chaplain's memorial is on Chaplain's Hill, and it contains the names of Catholic priests that gave their lives in the service of our nation. Also on Chaplain's Hill is Father Charles Waters, a Medal of Honor recipient who gave his life in Vietnam. And in nearby Section 3, we have Robert and Jerome McGovern, Medal of Honor and Silver Star recipients who went to St. John's College High School in Washington, D.C., a Catholic school. Even though I talk about a couple of quote-unquote notables, every single person in the cemetery is notable to someone. The story that I tell about faith is that I once took a general from the Middle East to Section 60, and I took him to the grave of a Muslim American soldier, and there was the Muslim emblem of belief on the headstone. And the general turned through the interpreter and he said, "What's that over there?" I said, "Well, that's a Buddhist emblem of belief." And he said, "What's that over there?" And I said, "Well, that's Latter-day Saints, and that's Methodist." And I started going through all of the emblems, and there was a Star of David maybe 20 feet away. And the general just surveyed the whole section and stood there for, it seemed like an eternity. And then through the interpreter, he said the general is very moved that all of these people fought for one common cause of freedom.
Well, Tim Frank says Arlington National Cemetery is the final resting place for over 250,000 veterans. And he says that school groups, civic groups, and foreign dignitaries lay wreaths on a daily basis at the tomb of the unknown soldier. So every day their service and sacrifice is never forgotten. The Merchant Mariners of World War II are also receiving recognition. The group was awarded a Congressional Gold Medal. Lawmakers gathered last May for a ceremony to mark the occasion.
Oh, say, can you see?
We gathered to bestow Congress's highest honor, the Congressional Gold Medal, on the Merchant Mariners of World War II.
More than self, their country loved. For more than 9,500 perished for freedom.
And today to make it clear that without you, the success in World War II would not have happened.
American mariners fought and won perhaps the greatest logistics battle in human history as they enabled the Allied victory in World War II.
We are inspired by your courage and example, blessed by the democracy you helped to preserve, and honored to have the opportunity to be with you as the Congressional Gold Medal is presented to commemorate all that you and so many did for our nation.
It was the biggest, most difficult, and most dangerous transportation job ever undertaken. And we know how the Merchant Marine responded. Everything America asked them to do, they delivered.
I stand before you with humble tribute to my fallen brothers. We gave up our yesterdays for your and their tomorrows.
I'm honored to present the Congressional Gold Medal to the Merchant Mariners of World War II in recognition of their bravery and outstanding service.
And the home of the brave.
And we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including a military controversy. An archbishop speaks out about the military's involvement in abortion using your tax dollars. And see the ceremony for the Swiss Guards who vowed to protect the Pope. staying with us for this Memorial Day special. The Archbishop for Military Services is speaking out against the provision to allow abortions in certain circumstances at VA medical centers. In a letter released last month, Archbishop Timothy Broglio calls the measure, quote, morally repugnant. He adds that it fails to incorporate basic conscience protections and thus creates First Amendment issues for VA employees and military commanders. We go now to Archbishop Timothy Broglio, head of the Archdiocese for the Military Services in the United States. He is also president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time today. First off, could you tell us why you felt it was so important to write this letter?
I thought it was very important because my primary responsibility is the pastoral care of the men and women in uniform, their families, and also those in the system of the veterans hospitals. And I felt there was a danger that their rights would be violated because they could be forced to participate in actions which are contrary to the natural moral law and also contrary to the teaching of the Church. So I wanted to plead that they might have conscience protection so that they could abstain from participating in abortion or other activities which are immoral.
And can you tell us more, Your Excellency, about this new ruling regarding the abortions at the VA medical centers?
Well, prior to this time, abortions were not permitted on any federal facility. And so this represents a change. The VA has, at least in the initial document, there was some conscience protection. And also there were some restrictions on the practice of abortion, but it still represents a change in what had been federal law up until this point. And so it was important to make a statement really protesting this violation of human rights.
And I also know that you condemn the Department of Defense's policy, which allows taxpayer funding to cover travel-related expenses for procuring an abortion. For those who are not familiar with this policy, if you don't mind briefly telling us more about this and why it is so troubling.
Well, it's troubling because you're providing federal funding not only for the actual surgical procedure, but you're also giving people paid time off for the procedure. You are also obliging commanders who might have extreme moral difficulties with this to give this permission to sign off that the person can take this leave time, and then also authorize the funds, all of which are federal, that is your taxpayers' dollars, to fund this whole procedure. And normally it's extremely difficult to obtain travel funds and so forth for something that isn't specifically related to your military obligations. And so this also represents quite a dramatic change to what had been the policy up until this point.
Your Excellency, I'm curious, have you received any response or any type of reaction to your letter?
I've received a response from a number of people in the military and a number of others. Thus far, the response has all been favorable. I have not received any response from anyone who might be in a decision-making role regarding this question.
Well, Your Excellency, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us about all this. We really appreciate it. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you, too.
And now we want to introduce you to the Swiss Guards who promised to protect the Pope. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Tannhauser shows us last year's swearing-in ceremony for the world's smallest and oldest standing army.
New Swiss Guards make their oath on the date that marks the anniversary of the sack of Rome. On this day in 1527, 189 Swiss Guards defended Pope Clement VII against an army of German Landsknecht soldiers and Spanish mercenaries. 147 died in battle, including their commander Caspar Royst of Zurich. 42 guards were able to flee across the Passetto di Borgo, an elevated escape route, to Castel San Angelo. Pope Clement VII was forced to surrender shortly after, but his life and those of the 42 guards were spared from the carnage. The swearing-in ceremony concludes an ample schedule of celebrations that customarily begins the day before with Vespers and the deposition of a wreath of flowers to remember the guards killed in 1527. The next day, Mass is celebrated in St. Peter's Basilica in the morning. Then in the afternoon, the swearing-in of the new guards takes place. This year, 36 new recruits were sworn in at a smaller than usual ceremony, which included parents and siblings of the guards and official representatives of Switzerland and the church. For this special occasion, the guards wore the so-called Grand Gala, a comprehensive uniform of armor also seen for the Urbi et Orbi papal blessing at Christmas and Easter. As tradition dictates, the oath is made with a hand on the Pontifical Swiss Guard Corps flag in the presence of the representative of the Pope, Archbishop Edgar Peña Parra. The guards promise to protect and defend the reigning Pope and all of his legitimate successors in moments of need, even to the point of death. Each does so by reciting the following phrase in one of the languages of the Swiss Federation. To become a member of the Corps, there are some strict requirements. One must be a Swiss citizen, a practicing Catholic, and be between 19 and 30 years old. The recruit must be single, at least 5 feet, 8.5 inches tall, be in good health, and have an impeccable reputation. At the same time, one must have passed the Army School for Recruits and be available for at least 26 months of service. Still today, the Pontifical Swiss Guards constitutes the oldest military corps in the world, having been founded by Pope Julius II in 1506. They are responsible for keeping watch over the entrances to the Vatican and the Apostolic Palace, carrying out police and representative duties during papal ceremonies and state receptions, and also protecting the College of Cardinals during a sede vacante period. In Rome, Andreas Tonhauser, EWTN News Nightly.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, it is more than a story of survival. A World War II veteran describes how God never left him. And remembering a military chaplain, see the pilgrimage that crosses Kansas. Welcome back. Earlier, we introduced you to 97-year-old Stanley Maybrook. He survived a gunshot wound in World War II. He also shared another amazing story, how God stayed with him throughout the war.
God was good to me. I had one of my Bibles with me throughout the whole thing. I lost it 5 times, and it came back to me every time. One of the times, it was in my Red Cross bag. It got knocked off and fell in the Atlantic Ocean there. And luckily, 4 or 5 hours later, a fisherman found it and returned to me. It was one at a time. But it was lost when I got wounded. It came back to me, and several other times. So I know there is a God.
And we thank Mr. Maybrook for his witness and, of course, for his service. And now we want to show you a pilgrimage in honor of an American military chaplain who lost his life during the Korean War. Hundreds of people turned out for last year's Walk in Kansas. They followed in the footsteps of Father Emil Capon, who died in a North Korean prison camp after an 87-mile march of his own. We get the story from reporter Alan Holdren.
In the Diocese of Wichita, Kansas, annually for the last 14 years, a special pilgrimage has been made. From the busy aero-industrial metropolis of Wichita, 60 miles on foot, to St. John Nepomucene Church in the tiny town of Pilsen, population 65. The 4-day Father Capon pilgrimage remembers a heroic Korean War chaplain from Pilsen who posthumously received the Army's Medal of Honor. And this year's edition was extraordinary.
Every day we're consistently starting with about 300 people, which is our biggest year, bar none. And I think that's kind of attributed to, the fact that, we found him and he's home.
Father Emil Capon served in both World War II and the Korean War as an Army chaplain. He died in a prisoner of war camp on May the 23rd, 1951. Until March of 2021, a full 70 years later, Father Capen's remains were unidentified, along with those of so many other unknown soldiers, in the National Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu, Hawaii. As soon as his bones were identified, plans were made to bring him back to his home state of Kansas. His funeral was celebrated on September the 29th, 2021, and that very day, his remains were finally placed in a tomb with his name on it in Wichita's Immaculate Conception Cathedral. Father Eric Weldon and some friends created the Father Capen pilgrimage together in 2009.
I always think about how many miles he walked to that prisoner of war camp. And I thought to myself about 14 years ago, what if I just do something for 3 days and he did it for 3 weeks or longer, you know? And he did it in harsh conditions, under threat of death, with no food and bitter cold. Surely we can do something here in Kansas to commemorate him and who he is.
Today, people of all ages from all over turn out, and for many, once they come once, they keep coming back.
I have not done this pilgrimage before. It's my first time.
This is my 7th year of doing it. Of course, the last 2 years I haven't come because of the COVID.
I've done this pilgrimage 8 times now.
And we signed up for this a couple of years ago. We wanted to do it. We couldn't because of COVID, and this year was an opportunity to do it, so we came.
We've been going at this for a couple years now, but it's just a great experience, and you have to come. You just have to.
And conversations are just, in the beauty of nature, you start receiving things from the Lord, and He just showers graces on you in the midst of all the difficulty.
It's not a cakewalk, but it is more spiritually fulfilling than anything else I've ever been a part of.
To know that everyone else is hurting just as much as you are, and the pain that Father Capen went through was worse than that. It's a humbling experience.
You don't have it so bad after all, when you realize what people like that actually had to go through.
It's growing every year. Father Capen is becoming more well known throughout the country and the world.
The organizers say that this walk leads pilgrims in the footsteps of a man on the path to sainthood, in order to discover their own unique paths to sainthood. As they walk this path in Father Capen's memory and honor, one thing is for sure: they're seeking the holiness they see in his example.
And we thank Alan Holdren for that report. This year's Kansas Camino begins June 1st. Registration, however, is full, but organizers are already encouraging people to consider next year's pilgrimage. Registration for 2024 is expected to open next March. And take a look at this. The Knights of Columbus has released a documentary about the life and legacy of Father Capen.
He read the story in the magazine.
It reminded him, well, this is the priest that I knew.
The magazine and the miracle, Finding Father Capen, examines the incredible circumstances that led to the finding of his remains. It also details the efforts to bring Father Capen to his new resting place in a cathedral in his native Kansas. For more information and to view the 15-minute short film, visit kofc.org. And we thank the Knights of Columbus for its support of EWTN News Nightly. And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.